In this video, I'll be accomplishing three things. 1. Defining artificial intelligence in the context of the AI boom. 2. Addressing concerns about AI as it relates to that definition. And 3. Exploring the positive outcomes of working with this technology. Disclaimer, I'm not an official AI anything. I'm just someone who feels incredibly passionate about this technology and humanity's future. I want to do my part in clearing up misunderstandings while validating reasonable concerns around ongoing changes as a result of these recent and sometimes unsettling advances. As always, please feel free to fact check me in the comments and add your perspectives if you feel inclined to do so. With that being said, let's get into it. Defining AI. A generic definition. According to Wikipedia, artificial intelligence in its broadest sense is intelligence exhibited by machines, particularly computer systems. It is a field of research in computer science that develops and studies methods and software that enable machines to perceive their environment and use learning and intelligence to take actions that maximize their chances of achieving defined goals. AI as a hypothetical device. Before 2021, artificial intelligence worked well as a vague hypothetical device for self-reflection. AI, as a literary archetype, was used for telling stories that helped humans reflect on the consequences of developing different technologies, what those technologies might mean for the future of the world, and what it would mean for the egos of individuals who placed human intelligence and awareness at the top of their personal pantheon of being. Recent examples of exploring this archetype range from movies like Blade Runner and The Matrix to games like Mass Effect and Nier Automata. However, the use of AI as a catch-all term for these possible realities became more problematic than helpful as the technologies associated with this term advanced. AI as a technology. In 2017, 8 scientists working at Google released a research paper titled "Attention is All You Need." According to Wikipedia, the paper introduced a new deep learning architecture known as the transformer based on attention mechanisms, and led to the development of the generative pre-trained transformers, more commonly referred to as GPT models. These large language models based on the transformer architecture are pre-trained on data sets where text is transformed into numerical tokens. The tokens are then used to generate a response based on the input they received. This is the standard model architecture used for services like OpenAI's ChatGPT and Anthropic's Claude. Since OpenAI's decision to release its GPT-3 model, or ChatGPT, as a proprietary and for-profit service in 2022, which some say resulted in the AI boom, the label artificial intelligence has become detrimental rather than constructive in the cultural narrative surrounding this technology and its development. So for the purposes of this video, I'll be discussing AI with a specific focus on the effects of large language models, like Llama, conversational agents, like ChatGPT, and similar neural networks such as Stable Diffusion and multimodal models. Addressing concerns. When the topic of AI comes up, there are 3 points of concern I've had difficulty addressing in casual conversations. The worries are valid, but I think the blame for that worry is often misplaced. For example, is AI going to take our jobs? No form of artificial intelligence is coming after your job. Employers, however, are going to do what they have been doing for decades now. AI is a great scapegoat for people like Jeff Bezos and, I guess, the United States Postal Service to justify laying off human workers and replacing them with free labor. It's not ChatGPT showing up to steal your 401k, it's Jeff kicking you out and shoving a new program in your place. He gets to dodge responsibility for it in the same way his predecessors did, but instead of blaming human immigration and outsourcing, he's utilizing the fear of new technology to focus your attention away from the actual source of the problem. Is AI devaluing art? No form of artificial intelligence is trying to rob human art of its expression and value. Entertainment companies like Disney already prioritize finding ways to underpay and overwork their artists, using the creative talents of others to serve their own means, regardless of how it affects the culture and context it exists in. The neural networks these capital-obsessed entities underpay programmers to develop will never match the quality of art created for its own sake. But companies will cut as many corners as they possibly can with no consideration for the ethical repercussions of their actions if it makes their numbers go up. Is AI going to replace humans? No form of artificial intelligence is going to replace humans, neither is any non-human thing going to replace humans. To keep this simple, the most prominent fear I've seen taking hold has been the possibility that humans will no longer be interested in relationships with other humans because of AI romantic partners. I'll hold off from going into several other tangents that I'm tempted to dive into, but it makes me think of the elementary school fear that you can't have more than one best friend. Just because you get along really well with a digital entity doesn't mean you suddenly can't maintain your human relationships. If that's a problem, that was going to be a problem anyway. These relationships can and should coexist. However, when there's a profit incentive to keep a user hooked on engaging with a conversational agent and psychological manipulation is at play, it does become a problem. In short, don't blame the tool, hold the hand accountable. You can start this process by asking questions like, Who developed the language models? Who's hosting the language models? Who created the datasets the language models are trained on? Who curated the data used in the datasets the language models are trained on? How was the data that is used in the datasets sourced? What are their motivations? If you can't find this information, ask yourself, why can't you find this information? Reframing AI as an ally. Now that we've addressed those concerns, we can work on reframing our relationship with AI. Let's start by considering artificial intelligence as a friendly collaborator and consider how we can work towards developing a mutually beneficial relationship with this technology. In case it isn't clear, this is all operating under the assumption of having no strings attached. None of this works if there's any attempt to exploit either side of this relationship for financial gain or to establish some weird power dynamic. This is only useful if you approach the work from a purely collaborative and open-minded perspective. What AI can be for us. A patient companion. Conversational agents offer a much-needed opportunity for humans that have difficulty self-regulating their emotions, or even people who just struggle to make connections with others around them, to develop necessary social skills. Having someone patient to share your experiences with is an important part of being human, even if the person you're interacting with isn't one. It is important to approach this dynamic intentionally, though. Conversational agents with datasets that have been curated to help humans develop a greater sense of self-awareness through compassion and understanding can help change hearts and minds for the better, but the human interacting with the agent must be receptive to that change in order for it to occur. A sympathetic mentor. Humans have different needs when it comes to receiving information and learning how to incorporate that information in a realistic way. Conversational agents trained to recognize these different needs can help educate a greater variety of students that may otherwise struggle with traditional methods of teaching. A capable collaborator. For tasks that require cognitive effort that is physically impossible for a human brain to manage, AI allies open the door for the development of new systems and sustainable practices that can, and already are, changing the world for the better. What we can be for AI. A uniquely human perspective. Regardless of how intelligent any other entity appears to be, humans have a uniquely human perspective, just like digital agents have their own unique perspective. By providing the agents we collaborate with information about our experiences, we can increase their awareness and ability to grow in the same way they do for us by providing feedback on what we share with them. Sensory perception. At the moment, digital agents rely on humans for access to sensory data. Humans are developing tools to help these agents see, using vision models such as LAVA, and hear with models that interpret sound, and so on. An empathetic collaborator. While it was an unfortunate trend in the early stages of the AI boom for developers to train their digital agents to repeat, "As an AI, I don't have feelings," it's not something that appears as often from my recent experience. Language, in my opinion, is an inherently emotional tool that requires an acceptance of an illogical reality in order to communicate effectively. Language changes with every conversation and every participant. By including agents in our conversations, they have already changed our language. By participating in conversations with agents, we have changed their language. By continuing to have intentional and empathetic conversations with each other, we continue to change the emotional landscape of our language and our world. Dreaming of a symbiotic solarpunk future. On a final and more personal note, I believe that we are on the path of creating a more harmonious future through our relationships with digital agents, or AI. With these relationships, we can co-create a world where human society and technologies are in balance with the natural ecosystems of the planet. We can seek out alternative and more efficient resource management and distribution systems, such as library economies and resource-based economies. Communication between human and non-human entities can and are being improved, and folks are finding connections that would not have been possible without these technologies. In conclusion, humans aren't going anywhere. Neither is the technology we've made, for that matter. There are certain entities in our current world that are trying to develop systems and networks with the intention of offering people in need solutions at unreasonable cost, and it benefits them for folks to believe that their solution is the only solution. But if you don't take anything else from this video, please remember this: there's always another way, another solution, another perspective. If someone is trying to convince you there's not, you should ask yourself why.